Hi there, Gemini. This is your weekly reading for the week of November 30th. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. Here we are going into the Christmas season already. It's kind of crazy. On Monday, the card that you've drawn, Gemini, is the Four of Swords. This card talks about a need to step back, think about all of the events of the recent past, including coming off of this square energy that we've been experiencing. It's one of these situations where sometimes the universe carves into whatever it is that's going on in our lives an opportunity to step back and reassess the situation and maybe ask ourselves, is this working? Does this situation work for me or not? Does this person fit into my life and to who I am now? Sometimes the universe wants us to ask those questions of ourselves, because if we don't schedule that time in, it might not happen. And introspection is one thing, but without reflection, it just lacks that perspective that helps us move into the future. So what really is leading this energy in is the Sun in Sagittarius squaring Neptune in Pisces. Now, Sagittarius is your solar seventh house, so there is some talk, some discussion or dissemination of the recent past as it relates to partnership and other seventh house matters, best friends, marriages, committed relationships such as the type that are not found in the fifth house, which the fifth house for you is dating and romance. And the seventh house being a very committed type of house, having Neptune squaring it from Pisces in your solar 10th house does give the idea a lot of illumination where other people can see this, where it's more outwardly expressed, or other people see the writing on the wall before you do. And maybe you do see the writing on the wall in some situation, and it could be about your career, 10th house issue, and it might not be. It might just be an issue that is more like how all this affects your public persona. So with that said, at the same time, the Sun in Sagittarius was conjunct Saturn in Sagittarius, and those objects there talking to you from across the sky, talking to your first solar house of Gemini, and wondering what is the lesson that you're supposed to take from this. You're asking yourself questions like, well, where am I at now? Am I at a plateau? Is this now the precipice and I have to figure out what's the easiest fall down? How do I get down from here? How do I make the changes? Those things will become more and more clarified for you as time goes on, of course. And at the end of the year, it's appropriate here in the United States, especially with the way that we start off the season with Halloween going into Thanksgiving, and then we go into a much more quiet kind of 12th house time of year. With that said, the idea that you need to think about this, it's not about just resting on laurels in terms of creativity and in terms of job, career issues. It's not about just sitting there and not doing anything. This is a very active card for you. Your ruler being Mercury. Mercury is all about thoughts, actions, messages, communications, communique. It's all about the mental processes that we almost take for granted, because most of the time we're so busy we don't realize that this is happening. And this card encourages you to take a more proactive role in these considerations. And even if someone else provokes you, you don't have to be reactive at all. That's not what the Four of Swords is about. If you know the Tarot, you know the story of the Four of Swords is taking a rest between battles to ultimately go on and hopefully win the war. So in real life, of course, our battles could be likened to the normal challenges, you know, even if they're made up of so much flotsam and jetsam that really is so much peripheral noise, you know, but they still are interactions, ideas, situations, minutia that makes up what the entire day is, that we don't even think about it unless we make a point to sit there and consider what the remains of the day are. Tuesday, the card that you've drawn is a 10 of Swords. And I know that doesn't look like the happiest thing, but remember, this is a week at a time, and this is done in such a way that I believe that whatever omen you receive is exactly what you need. Even if, like I tell people, if you clicked on the wrong video and realize that you totally got it wrong, or maybe if I put the wrong reading with the right astrological, the zodiac sign, you'd still get the right message, in my opinion. So on Tuesday, the Ten of Swords is a card that indicates at some point the buck stops here, right here. This is when we're done with the current situation, that it needs to wrap itself up. It is beyond repair. Whatever this is, it could be a family interaction, it could be a situation with a family or extended family members, and that is just in there because of the type of holidays we're going into. That even if you're a single person with one dog, one cat, and a 3-legged turtle, that no matter what's going on, family becomes a part of the picture because you weren't just literally dropped off by the stork. So even our thoughts and considerations of people in the past tend to come up like so much regurgitated cud, just for review and further processing. So on Tuesday, this Ten of Swords coincides with communications, obviously, with the sword suit, but Mercury, your ruling planet, is again across the sky in Sagittarius, trining Uranus in Aries, which is your solar 11th house. So the question really isn't about who your friends are as much as how can your friends play into your life. How do they factor in to what your family, extended family of friends, and your tribe, your posse, your group, lots of families are not made up of genetic material sharing individuals. These people move in and out of our lives, and family is, in my opinion, all about the people that you choose to be with and choose to be with you at different times of the year. It doesn't have to be a situation where there's your blood cousin, your cousins, your kissing cousins, as they call it, which really, that's probably the grossest thing in the world ever. But you know what I'm talking about? People that are so close to you that they might as well act like siblings. Well, exactly, right? So think about this. How do you supplement and or create family and community and partnership and love and structure with people that might just be your friends? Have they become more like your family? Now, on the same day, Mercury in Sagittarius squares Chiron in Pisces, and Pisces being your 10th house. Of course, there's some wounding here that can be healed by exploring the wounding itself. Now, square energy, anytime the objects are making a square, this is where we have some kind of challenge or an obstacle that needs to be handled. It doesn't mean that you have to go full on attack and deck your redneck neighbor, knock a few teeth out, drink a beer and call it good and, pass the peace pipe. It doesn't have to be like that, but this is where the kind of obstacle that's there could very much be, because Saturn in Sagittarius is involved in attempting to communicate and make peace and compromise with somebody that is part of your committed relationship, maybe even living in your home. With that said, we also have Mercury in Sagittarius sextiling Apollo in Libra. Libra being your 5th house of relationships, romance, creativity, children, even if they're adult children, could even be your siblings if you don't have children involved, and the siblings belong also to the 5th house. And so Apollo here is asking who is the hen in the hen house? Who's the main hen? What order does the pecking take? Who's the rooster who comes home to roost? Because Apollo is all about leadership and all about somebody directing the effort or the group. And so a sextile energy is an opportunity to bridge a situation, to maybe let some of these past situations continue to flow under the bridge and move out of the sphere, and then where we can take up again and direct our families, or even if your family is you and the one cat named Fred. That this is where you're going to direct where and in which different ways family has a place in your life. What type of role do your relatives play in your life? Also here we have the Sun in Sagittarius is sextiling Ceres in Aquarius, and Aquarius being your 9th house. Sextile again being an opportunity that you have to seize and do something with to make it work at all. These objects up there are not just sending down these crazy rays that they're coming out of some, weird God's eyes, down to help us do whatever has to be done. We're the ones who do it. Opportunities can be present, but if we don't grab them, they don't just do their own thing. They just sit there. It's like having the magic bean for the beanstalk. Well, if you put it in your pocket, I really don't see what use it is. But Aquarius being your solar 9th house, we could have with Ceres being an indication of a power struggle of some kind, where compromise is probably going to be the best solution with Ceres. You need to think about this. If there are some legal issues or some results of a legal issue, even if it does date back to 2007, which is the last time that we had some of these contemplative periods where they related to the same situations that we're recently dealing with. And now that we're letting some of the more difficult squares that we've dealt with now basically work themselves out of our lives. We really don't have to do much about it other than to close the doors and end the chapters. But here there could be an issue that related to a family issue, a divorce, a separation, the financial results of these divorces, separations, marriages, other types of partnerships that could have had a fatal flaw involved. And look, this is life. You know, sometimes, like I was telling my son, sometimes people get married and they realize later, wow, dude, check this out. We're not even really compatible. And these people shake hands and walk away. And then there are people that are going to make it difficult for everybody else to get a divorce, and they have to be the bitch in the mix. And then they don't know how to let things go. And then we're sitting there saying, please, would you just, you know, can we just not all get along? But look, we're not good as lovers and spouses and partners. And so it kind of reminds me of Diana Ross and Berry Gordy. Even when they were no longer together, Berry Gordy and she were still very, very close friends. And of course, he was not just managing her, but he had a close affection for her. And that's where we like to think that people can be civilized. But I think you've noticed that there are people in this world, no matter what you do with them, it's almost like saying that you can take the cow out of the pasture, but you can't take the pasture out of the cow. No, I know that's a terrible analogy, but it's the first one that came to mind, don't you know? On Wednesday, we have the King of Pentacles in reverse. So there is the idea of potentially an earth sign male, could be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, could just be a person who literally holds the purse strings, or a man who somehow is in charge of the money or the resources or of the material items, and that this person really is just being a big ass. So if this individual is somebody who's coming across as a person who makes all the decisions about the money, maybe somebody who holds the inheritance strings, and they decide at what interval and to what extent the monies will be distributed. And this person's just like name dropping, like, oh yeah, sure, I've got so much power because I'm the one who signs the checks. Wow. Huge accomplishment, right? You can sign your name. So this person's probably getting on your nerves. And with Mercury and Sagittarius opposing Psyche in Gemini, Gemini, of course, being your first solar house, we've got an issue here of what needs to change. Is there some patriarch in your family that is just pissing everybody off? Is there somebody who is just kind of a tyrant and has nothing to identify with other than controlling some assets? And if so, what are you going to do about that? How we handle this is really going to be dependent on how and why we would endure this type of energy anyway. What are we putting up with? Why would you put up with it? Why would anybody put up with somebody being a bully, a tyrant? Or reminds me of Donald Trump energy, right? A big, he's more of a strawberry blonde than anything. I don't even know if that's his natural color, but you know, like a big redheaded baby Huey having a tantrum. And they want to hold on to the little bag of coins and dish it out and dole it out when people beg them of it, right? I don't think you need to deal with a person like this. And it might not be somebody in your immediate circle. It could be somebody associated with one of your children, one of your children's spouses or in-laws. Maybe it is your in-law. It could be somebody else that we're like, what is this person's problem? I'm not even really related to you in terms of organic material, and if I was, trust me, I'd be on the opposite end of the world. So with that said, let's move into Thursday. We've got the Fool energy in reverse. The Fool energy is a card that indicates that there's some sort of false start right here at this point on Thursday, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't want to deal with it, because we've got Mercury, Sagittarius, semi-sextiling Bacchus in Capricorn, and this is a kind of idea where Capricorn being your 8th house, solar 8th house, you might be like, screw it, I'm checking out of this. I want a divorce, but I don't know how to get up and do it, or I just don't have the resolve and the wherewithal to do it. You do it. If you want a divorce, go get it then. I don't even care. You know, don't indulge in that escapism if it has a connotation of something very serious with an underlying legal entanglement. Be careful, because if there's going to be a legal entanglement, then we don't want this thing long and drawn out. Like if it's time for a separation, or if people realize it's time for a divorce, whether it's you and your spouse or partner or mate that need to go in opposite directions, and or if this is somebody in your family, like a daughter, son, child, somebody who's going through some kind of separation between themselves and the 5th house of the children, grandchildren, we might have an issue here where something looks like it was supposed to start off to be a good thing. It reminds me of tattoos, right? Just about everybody I know, if I can get them to admit it, will say this: well, it seemed like a good idea at the time, and shit, now look what I've got on wrist. And we're all like, joke's on you. You know, I tell people to go draw on themselves with a Sharpie. At least that way, once you're sick of it, it'll wash out eventually. But this is a kind of energy that might have seemed like it was a good idea at the time. And then fill in the blank. You've got time to think about this, so, you know, pay attention to what it is. Remember that if one of your children comes to you with a dilemma, the last thing you want to do is bash that child's wife or husband or in-laws or other people. Don't get into the shit talking thing. I've seen that personally, and it never does anything but create insurmountable obstacles in order to repair the relationship. Children are the ones who suffer from this. I'm sure you've heard the stories of people having to warn each other, like, look, don't piss off your kids because one day they won't want to see you. Don't do this because it's going to teach them to be strong, but it shows them what a fool you are. Well, the fool in reverse could indicate that you've got a person in your family who may be going through this. So do not give your opinion unless it's asked of you. You can say, look, I love you. I'm sorry you're going through this. If you would like my opinion or my perspective of this, please ask me and I will give it to you. And then be careful not to be bashing other people, because it definitely will come back home to roost. And it could be like the shit on the porch, right? If you got chickens running around your porch like I did, you know, then eventually those, you know, birds are going to poop and we've got to clean it off and disinfect it. So just remember, we don't want to make a mess where there is none. Keep it cool. Mercury in Sagittarius trining Minerva in Leo, Leo being your solar third house of communication, is trying to get you to see things from a different point of view when you communicate about these situations, or when you communicate the advice or give the objective perspective point of view to one of your children or your friends that's going through. They could be the ones going through this. Minerva is asking you to infuse as much intelligence and wisdom into this. Now, intelligence and wisdom are not redneck fights in the backyard wearing a wife beater, punching the toothless guy in the face. It's almost like as if these are the things that we expect people with no intellect to get involved in. And you don't need to have a college degree or two to know how to utilize intellect, because it really is just about cutting out the extraneous and moving forward in a way that is just fact-based and, of course, humane. Okay, so even if you don't like your daughter's husband's family, you don't have to say it. You can say, like, look, my parents were able to, they never said a word about how much they disliked my ex-husband or his family until the divorce was underway. Not even my brothers had said a word. It was the weirdest thing ever. But, you know, I like to think, as crazy as my family is, they do have sanity when it comes to how we handle these types of relationships. And, you know, my father did such a beautiful thing by never saying anything until when he said, are you sure you're going to divorce him? And I said, yes, Dad, it's going to happen. I can't have this happening under the roof anymore. The kids are being affected. We're all affected, whatever. And I didn't want to tell my dad the details of it, you know, but he pulled it out of me because God rest my dad, he'd know when I was lying. He'd say, I know when my daughter is lying to me and you're lying right now. And so I finally was like, yeah, Dad, no, there's no hope here. It can't continue. And my dad said, well, you know what? I never did like him. Didn't like anybody in his family. I knew that they were trash. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I didn't even want you marrying this person. I was like, oh my God, I thought my dad actually liked him. You know, of course, you'd understand that my brothers wanted to kill him, and each of them had a different plan of how they would affect this. And I'm like, Jesus, nobody needs to go to prison over the loser. You know, at least it's just a situation that can be under the bridge now. But, you know, even with that, my mother hadn't even said anything until my ex-husband, before the divorce actually started. Funny story, my mom wanted to pay him off and said, I'll give you $10,000 if you just leave, just walk away. And he was like, no, I want $20,000. I was like, hell no, people aren't going to pay each other to get out of this marriage. We're going to do this through court, no matter how ugly it gets, because that we don't pay people to make them go away. You're not taking my mom's money. And you know, and then the things that they said afterward made me realize that it was so much better for me that my family did not have to get involved in any mudslinging about him to him, because they had such love and respect for my children. And if it had not been that example, I never would have been able to give this kind of advice to other people, to say, look, even if you hate this individual, don't let them know. If I could say, like I've told you guys many times, I love this person, God bless you. Now, you know, getting I love you from me might be a little more, you know, you have to prove a couple of things to me, you know, but this is kind of the energy of not starting off making where a person's starting a new decision. And let's just say that it's your daughter, God forbid, but your daughter wants a divorce and wants this part of her life over, and everybody's got to jump in to help her. Well, then, you know, everybody jumps in, but they don't have to point fingers or call out names. Also, Mercury in Sagittarius, sextiling Cupid in Libra, is saying that it would be so much better to forego the long-term satisfaction of flipping off your ex or your daughter's ex and saying, F you and your whole redneck family. Probably not a good idea. The best way to handle this is to forego the short-term satisfaction. That's what Cupid talks about. Forego the short-term satisfaction of cussing somebody out like a truck driver, even if it means you have to swallow those words for a while, because it will be so much better for your family if you do that. There's nothing wrong with expressing yourself or saying, no, like, I really want to tell this person to F off. Well, have a friend of yours, get some Nerf guns and shoot each other with Nerf darts, to see if you can get it out of your system without losing your composure. And again, I apologize if you're going through a situation that is much more complex than other people would understand, but trust me, where there's a will, there's a way to get through it. All of it just requires a need to be objective and to stay almost in a stage or the attitude of grace, where you understand that it's time for people to go their separate ways. We don't have to make it difficult. Now, if the other person wants to make it difficult for you, oh well, they can rack up their own karma points. It's always that way, always. On Friday, we've got the Chariot card, which indicates that there's a real potential for you to get these diverging or opposing factors under control. On Friday, astrologically, we've got Mercury and Sagittarius squaring Jupiter and Virgo. That's not comfortable, is it? So when we've got Sagittarius squaring Virgo, already these two don't understand each other. Virgo wants attention to details and attention to things done the right way, and sitting in your fourth solar house of house and home and the foundation. Sagittarius just wants to enjoy life and have fun and party, and are often mistaken for Gemini. But I tell people Sagittarius and Gemini are nothing alike, really. It's just some of the energies are similar, but no, when it comes down to it, Sagittarius really does want to do what's right for everybody. Some people could say that Gemini thinks of themselves first. I think everybody needs to put themselves first, and then as it goes down and extends into other people's needs, of course you guys know how to set your own needs aside. Most of you know how to set your own ego aside for the greater good of others. Although I gotta admit, I know at least one Gemini individual. Teresa knows her too. Hi, Teresa. And so this is one of those situations where we know that some people really can't help but sticking their hand into the cookie jar that isn't even theirs when they've got their own mess to handle, and they're trying to get involved in other people's issues. But for the most part, this is where it's going to be a need to focus on, how do we just make this thing work? How do we make this holiday season just go smoothly, and focus on what the real spirit of the holiday season is, which, depending on whether or not you have a belief system, I'm a Jesus person, but I don't do religion. So I don't like walls and divisions. I like Jesus because I've seen him, and I love the idea that he brought a very simple message to me, and yet it changed my life, just a few words from him. So keep in mind that the reason for the season is whatever you define it to be, but it doesn't have to be dysfunctional, right? Who wants to have a mudslinging party at a Mexican pachanga where, maybe Uncle Juan got drunk again, and there we go, and he's going to spout off all his truths on Christmas Eve, and we're like, no, you don't do it, Juan. So anyway, with that said, Venus also moves into Scorpio, which Scorpio being your solar sixth house of work, finances, health issues, spirit of community, the way the family works together as a result of the fifth house with the siblings and the nuclear family, into the sixth house of how does everybody get along, and what is it here that makes going to work every day easy or distracted. Okay, so that will help give some, if anything, charm and sweetness to the way you communicate some things that may be difficult. Like maybe you say to let's pick on your daughter again. I don't know who your daughter is, but let's just pick on somebody, and say that you tell your daughter you love her so much, but you understand that she's married to a drug addict or an alcoholic or a stoner or something. And that you say, when you really want my advice, you'll probably be open to hearing it. But if you're not open to hearing it, I love you, but I can't help you. When you're ready for help, you'll know, because you'll be willing to hear what I say, and it will actually resonate with you and stimulate some thinking, right? That would be a Venus and Scorpio kind of talk right there. On Saturday, we have the Ace of Swords in reverse, so don't be surprised if maybe this week, which is probably going to be, if anything, the most difficult week of December. It's going to be a great month, but this is the one where here we've got to make these adjustments. And what are they? Where do they occur? Opportunities with sextile squares giving us challenges, and at least illumination, right? Well, the Ace of Swords is saying that these communications may not go as smoothly as we'd like them to, right? I would like to just float down the river and, like row your boat gently down the stream. I just want to enjoy my life as a dream. There's things that I have to take care of like anybody else, and I've got responsibilities and problems like everybody else. But, I'm more of a Rodney King type. Can't we all just get along? I would just like to see people get along, but communications may not go as far as you'd like them to. And to have them go any further might require brute force. And what's the key line there? The key wording: if you have to force somebody to hear you out, don't try to force them to listen either. Sunday, we've got the Ace of Cups in reverse, and on Sunday we've got a few different ideas that we could use this energy for. Now, the Ace of Cups being about the emotions, and maybe an emotional renewal that's just having a hard time getting off the ground, or we know that there's some difficulties that we have to face to start life over. You usually see this with people who want a divorce but they don't talk about it. So it could be, if it isn't you, if your marriage is solid and committed and sane and civilized, then it's not going to be happening there in your world. If you've got some problems in your marriage, it will make sense. But this is where we're able to look at things and say, well, it is time to allow the transformation to occur. Maybe it isn't time to implement these standards that I'd like to set, but maybe it is okay now to kind of like set up and come into alignment together, if possible, in a sane conversation about what's working and what isn't working, especially if the relationship is salvageable. So now, keeping in mind that in December we're going to go into the early phase of the pre-shadow for Mercury retrograde, it's not like even in the holidays it's going to matter much, because if you're really, let's give an example, if you really want to divorce your wife, you probably wouldn't be looking to do it this time of year. It really just, you wouldn't have everybody's support. The legal system slows down. It's already too sensitive for people. We're going to have a sensitive full moon in Cancer at the end of this month, which is your solar second house of income and property and the material goods, the clothes in your closet, the stuff in your garage, something under your bed. And so whatever this is, it could be a little bit too delicate to talk about. I would wait to start talking about it toward the end of January, maybe in February, where it might be a little easier, especially if communications are just going to be, sometimes you can't help it, right? If somebody throws divorce papers at you, or your daughter comes to you, or your son and says, look, I can't believe it, this person is going to divorce me. Well, roll up your sleeves and see what can be done. But it really won't be as easy for the people who are the ones initiating the divorces. Probably would be easier to be the respondent and not the petitioner. And so with that said, with Sun in Sagittarius, sextiling Mars and Libra being your fifth house, I would put more emphasis on trying to correct your friendly relationship vibes with your family. Don't get involved in any contentious situations or difficult discussions. Also, the Sun in Sagittarius, semi-sextile Pluto and Capricorn. Again, Capricorn being your eighth house, there are some tensions there as it relates to probably finances and how do we divide this and what are we going to do with the tax money this time? Are we going to blow it all on a bunch of, like what Teresa used to say, right? Plastic crap from Walmart. What are we really going to do with this? Can we pay a debt down with this? Can we get ahead of our taxes or mortgage insurance? What can we do with this? Because it looks like there's going to be a contentious situation that one of you, if not both of you, might want to go in diverging directions, or that your ideas intersect and go off again anyway. So you might have to make some real dedication this year, especially for you, Gemini. You guys have to make sure that financially you don't go overboard. You guys love to spend money and you love to give presents, and that's wonderful. But we have to be safe and sane about this, because then what happens? You max out your credit cards, or you start putting stuff on credit cards, and then before you know it, the hangover when you get that statement next year is incredible. Even if they promise you some deferred interest, just do like me. I don't really own anything, but I don't have any debt. So at that point, I feel pretty good about it. When I need some shoes, I'll save up money for shoes. If I need a dress, I'll save up money for a dress, because I just don't like credit, something that I cut my teeth on long ago. So maybe that would be helpful for you to implement too. What can we afford to spend? What do we have in cash after our expenses for January and December? And then you'll see that it will be better for you to make these more structured decisions about finances. And in a lot of the relationships with you guys, married partnerships, you're going to find that the Gemini partner, if you're not both Gemini, but the Gemini partner is going to be the one this year, more than likely, if you're evolved enough to say, hey, look, sweetheart, I love you. I want to spend $1 million too on a bag of circus peanuts for everybody in the world. But we just can't do it in a sane way. Let's give a gift to ourselves to pay off some debt and have a normal Christmas where we sit around exchanging a token gift with each other, and maybe drawing names to exchange gifts that way, so that we don't have to really have that kind of pressure. And you'll see that you'll get a good reaction. Mars in Libra. squaring Pluto and Capricorn again is also talking about the need to, oh wait, I don't remember now if I was talking to you about that one. Let me go back here. Mercury and Sagittarius squaring Hygeia and Virgo. So Hygeia in Virgo is talking about the energy of trying to prevent the problems before they start. You know, that prevention is better than cure. If you can prevent a problem, that's the cure, you know, before it ever starts. So again, at the house level, at the home level, at the foundation level of your life, that you need to just make sure that you keep these finances from going out of control. Mars and Libra squaring the Pluto and Capricorn again is where we've got that, you know, maybe we want to give too much to our children, and look, they love you. They don't need. And if they do expect too much from you, then you really do have to think about, Gemini, what it is that you've taught these people. If we sat there and more often than not discussed what we're teaching each other, what examples we're setting for our children, what it is that we want for them, I think that you would find that most kids, if you said, hey, look, I'm going to get you this CD with your Christmas money, not a music CD, a certificate of deposit, you know, or a bank account or something to help pay for your college education. And the kid's like, no, what? I want the money now. I'm not going to college. Oh boy, now we've got a problem. Because if we can't get people into college and we can't keep them there, you got a much bigger problem than you do have an issue with interest on credit card debt, because trust me, it just gets all messed up from there. So maybe by setting some new examples this year, Gemini, you can show other people that during this holiday season, it's about the love and about support and really money and possessions. And I don't care what kind of Gucci bag or Louboutin heels, none of these things are going to buy love from people. They'll just love you anyway.